Welcome back to another episode of Retro Alliance Gaming. So today, what we're going to be talking about that I've been planning on talking about for a while is VGA. Now, you might be wondering, what does VGA stand for? Well, let me tell you. VGA stands for Very Gooey Asses, Video Games Are Awesome, Very Giant Ants, and for the finale of it, Voluptuous Grandmas Association. It sounds about right, right?
If only you could say voluptuous properly.
Voluptuous Grandmas Association. This is what... No, I'm just kidding, guys. So, in actuality, VGA, what does it stand for? Video Graphics Array. Basically, VGA is a certain kind of video format that you can use. People generally use them on computers, and you can also use it on the Dreamcast. Now, what I want to do for this video is... I was thinking about going in just straight into all this detail and I started thinking back on it. And a lot of times when I do videos, I don't make them simple enough. I make them more complicated because I assume everybody's going to understand this. But I don't just want this to be for people who understand VGA or understand how it works. I want it to be for people who just picked up a Dreamcast. They have no idea what it is. They think, oh my god, this system does not look good on my HD television. What can I do to make the system look better? And that's what I'm going to kind of break down for you guys today. So, VGA, basically, the format that was used on a lot of PCs. And how to kind of explain how it works. When game systems came out, Nintendo 64, PlayStation, Saturn, even the Dreamcast, when it came packed in with composite cables, okay? Which is a huge difference between component and composite. Component would be HD cables, and composite is basically standard definition. Now, here's where the issue comes into play. If you are, say, playing a Dreamcast on a regular tube television, a CRT, that's all the televisions we had way back in the day, it's going to look good generally. This is what most of these systems were built for. But at the same time, if you connect them to, like, for example, an HD monitor or an HD television like we have nowadays, it's not going to look good. And here's the reason why. You have this one little yellow cable, and you have a red and you have a white cable. Now, the red and the white are literally just used for audio, mono and stereo when you plug them both in together. Now, the yellow cord is what's being used for video. So what's happening is you're taking everything and jamming it through this one video cord. So red, greens, blues, every color, every signal is being jammed through this one single cord, and there's no separation of colors. And what ends up happening is when you use it, it doesn't look how it was intended. Even in the early 90s, when they were testing out these games or developing them, they developed them on TVs that actually had RGB status, which stands for red, green, and blue. So when we got them home, we always thought these are how these are supposed to look, and it's not correct at all, because when you shove everything into one single cord that way, you end up getting a blurry mess. And as time went on, this isn't just when the Dreamcast came out, when time went on, we got these big, beautiful LED televisions, these LCD televisions, and it made it even worse because these want to accept a signal of 480p, 720p, 1080p, 1080i, progressive versus interlace, and you just end up getting a blurry mess. Now, here is one of the millions of great things about the Dreamcast. It was so ahead of its time, and one thing that they thought about ahead of time was, let's make these games VGA compatible. They wanted to make it actually look amazing on your current monitors you were using. There weren't a lot of HD televisions back in the day, and if you had one, they were probably like $8,000 or something, and they were pretty freaking big, like rear projection TVs. So when they added the VGA ability, they added it so you can connect it to, say, a computer monitor. And by doing so, you were able to get these beautiful, I mean absolutely beautiful images coming out of it. To explain to you how this works, I'm going to break out my Dreamcast right here. So we have the black Sega Sports Dreamcast, and we have this VGA box. Now, I'm going to go into in a minute the different kinds of VGA boxes, but right now what I'm going to show you is the initial VGA box that I got. This is the first one I ever got, and this one was an original that came out way back in the day, okay? So remember when I was telling you about video cords? Well, actually, first let me show you this. This is the VGA box, okay? You have a cord right here in the front, and this is what's going to plug into your video instead of plugging in those composite, the red, yellow, and white cables, okay? And it goes in like this. So you plug it in the back. Now afterwards, you're not done. So on this particular VGA box, you're going to notice you have two different sets of hookups. You have the yellow, red, and white, which you can use normally, right? And then you have S-Video. Now S-Video would be the next video quality that goes up after you use composite, which this one has more prongs in it, and it's able to give you a better video signal. And it is definitely fantastic if it's your only option, but there is a better option, and that's this door right here opens up, and you have a VGA right here. You guys should all recognize that from any computers back in the day. I know a lot of them nowadays are getting rid of them. And you have an audio cable in the front. Now, as I was telling you before, now when you look at composite, all the videos being shoved through this one single cord is not doing well. Well, if you look at this, look how many different pins there are in here. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 different areas for it to plug into for the VGA cable. And realize that on these VGA boxes, this doesn't bring out the audio. There's a separate plugin for audio because VGA does not do that. So basically, instead of having one cord that you're shoving all this stuff into so you get this blurry mess of crap, you literally have all these different pins. Now, not everyone is utilized, but what it does is you have red, you have green, you have blue, there's boosters, syncs. It does all these different things, and it separates each one of those colors. So now, instead of it being jammed and being just slammed right into there, now they all have time to come through separately. And what happens is when you do that, you're giving your television a better signal, or your monitor if that's what you're using, and when it comes in, all the colors come in beautifully. Okay, now VGA on here, there's many different video qualities for VGA on a computer, but specifically on the Dreamcast, it will do 640 by 480p. And when you're using composite cables, it's generally around 240p. If you look at like Saturn or a PlayStation, I could be a little incorrect in that. So 640 by 480 is a far higher signal. So Sega was badass enough to include this as an accessory that you can buy for this. So just remember, all of those different cords are going to make it look different. Now, this doesn't just come across as being amazing for, say, using it on a monitor back in the day, but this box right here has literally saved all of our lives who use HD televisions by being able to make your system look HD on your current television. The first time I ever got a VGA box and I plugged it in and I played Soul Calibur, Shenmue, Skies of Arcadia, Grandia, Mars Matrix, Gigawing, I can go on forever. I literally, actually the first one I recall seeing was Guilty Gear, and it blew my freaking mind. All the blurriness was gone. All the colors were popping and vibrant. It literally, to me, looked like I downloaded it on like Xbox Live. It was so HD and so fantastic. And if you have a Dreamcast, I highly suggest that you invest in one of these boxes. It's going to change your gaming experience. It's going to allow you to get the most out of every single Dreamcast game. This isn't just a trick either. A trick of regular, where it's like, okay, we're trying to up-convert some older system. Sega meant for this to happen, and it is a breathtaking thing. Now, a couple more things to go into. The reason why I'm showing you this stuff on the back, and we're going to talk about VGA compatibility. Sega planned with every single game that came out on their system to be coded to have VGA compatibility. So it was coded into the game so it would work, obviously, once you got the VGA box. So when you look on the back of these games, I'm not sure if you'll be able to see this or not, but Skies of Arcadia, for example, amazing game. It'll say one player, standard controller, VMU compatible, jump pack, and it says VGA box. Again, I'm using a phone right now to record, so you might not be able to see that, but it says VGA box compatible. I really wish you'd be.
I can't help you.
So yeah, it's okay, honey. Right there. Now, when you look on the back of these games, most of them are going to say VGA compatible, but here's where it gets a little confusing with some of these games. You're going to find that some of them will work for VGA and some of them will not work for VGA. So, two different subjects to go into on here. The first things first, some of them were coded for VGA, but they forgot to print VGA on the back of the game. Literally, that's all it is. So I'll give you an example. Record of Lotus Floor, another amazing RPG on the system. If you look on the back here, it does not say VGA compatible, but it actually was coded to be VGA. If you go online, there's a list that will show you every game that is VGA compatible. So I can simply take out this game, pop it in, and it will boot no problem. Now, there's also a couple games that will say they're VGA compatible, but for some reason it's not coded that way, so it can get a little confusing. But other than that, there are some games that literally, a lot of them will just say not VGA compatible, like they're not at all, and you're questioning whether they code it. Well, this is where a certain disc will come into play. Out of all the games that came out, I guarantee you over at least 85% of them, you can get them into VGA. There's a very small, minute amount that cannot be. There's two things you do about this, okay? Now, for the games, whether they say VGA or they don't say VGA, if you go to boot them and they don't work, there's a trick to actually forcing them into there. Because if Sega forgot to put the code in, you can basically make it boot into VGA. Now, there's two ways to do this. This is the way I did it for years, but I highly suggest a different way. So what you do is on this box, after you plug it in, okay, going back to this example, I don't want to jump all over the place. After you plug this all in and you have everything set up, there is a button right here. It says TV and VGA mode. What you want to do is when you start the game, you press the button and you make sure it's in regular television mode. You turn on the Dreamcast, and the Dreamcast has a very specific noise, so as soon as you start to hear it boot up, it'll be like, the second that does that, you just press it again. Automatically, it will force the game into VGA. Or, a much better way of doing this is there is a specific disc, and I know I have a copy here somewhere. I have a regular and burnt. Okay, so there's a disc called Codebreaker. Now, Codebreaker is basically like a Game Shark. So you can get cheats, you can boot all of your imports with it, and on this disc, it forces all of your games into VGA. So basically, if you're unsure whether it boots or not, and it doesn't say it on there, or if you turn it on and it'll say on the front screen, I'll put something in the corner, it'll say something like this game is not compatible with the current video format. Simply pop in the Game Breaker disc, let it load, then you open the tray, pop your game in, and then you press start, and the second you do that, it will force the game into VGA. This, by the way, guys, is one of the best discs you can get. This is a burnt copy I'm showing you. I don't actually have a copy of Codebreaker, which I really want to get, but this is the one you want to use if you want to boot imports, especially because it boots imports and it forces it into VGA mode. If you don't do that and you're booting an import another way and you have to do the trick at the same time pressing the button, it'll get confusing. Now, on that same note, there is other discs out there that you can use. There is something called a DCX disc, and there's a Game Shark. Now, the Game Shark works fantastic, but the Codebreaker disc is going to give you everything the Game Shark does and force it into VGA. You still have to do that trick sometimes. So this is the best one to do for that. The DCX disc is literally meant for booting imports only. That is the disc you don't want to use. The thing that I've heard, now I haven't verified this 100%, but what I heard is not only doesn't it force it into VGA or just let the game be, but it actually purposely boots the game out of VGA mode. Now, I've played some games where it went on anyways in VGA, so it was a little confusing, but I've heard this from a lot of reputable sources, so I want to let you know, don't use the DCX, don't use the Game Shark, use the Codebreaker for any of the discs that you turn on. Yeah, like I said, if you want a list, you can check out a list, but really, pop the disc in, whether it says VGA or not, most of them will boot, and if not, you can use this to boot them. Other than that, There are a handful of games that literally cannot be forced into VGA. I don't know the amount of titles. I know it is a minimal amount in compared to the entire library that's there. I want to say maybe somewhere in around 25 plus games. I could be off on that. And basically, you can't do anything about it. There's a way to burn the games where people put VGA coding in there. But I know, for example, King of Fighters 99, I believe it's the one, or 2000 Millennium. Those will not actually boot in VGA mode. So again, not trying to confuse everybody too much with this, but this is giving you an idea. Now, going away from this and getting back to the box and discussing the stuff that's on the back here. Really quick, first things first. For the games that absolutely won't boot in VGA, you think to yourself, well, how am I supposed to play them? I just leave them on my shelf and I never use them? No, I want to play King of Fighters. So I would plug in the regular composite cables, or better yet, the S-video cables. So for whatever game doesn't play, you could either boot it up normally, like the original format that came with the system, or you can do S-video, so you could at least make it look nicer than it would normally look in that sense, since you cannot use this. Well, now with the update and nowadays, this isn't the box you're going to want to use. This is a fantastic box, but there are better things out there. There's a website I cannot remember the name of, but I will post below, and they make VGA boxes that are out of this freaking world. One of them is called a Toro. Hanzo, I believe, and you want to look up the details. The best one for you to get, in my personal opinion, is, I don't know if it's the Toro or the Hanzo, but it is a box. It is blue. You have VGA, just like you do on this one, on one side, and then on the other side with the audio, and I don't know if it includes S-video composite, but it has a SCART cable. SCART is a format that was used in the UK that was never used in America, and it absolutely should have been. It is another cable that is capable of RGB with many different pins, and it is very close to being the quality that you would get with VGA, in my opinion. I use SCART on the Genesis, I use the Sega CD, Super Nintendo, Sega Saturn. Beautiful. So whatever doesn't boot in VGA, you can boot in SCART. It's a little confusing because our televisions don't have SCART connectors to plug them into like they do in the UK. So in this sense, you would basically need to have some kind of box you can buy, which I'll post below, some kind of box that will take a SCART source. So you're plugging a SCART to a box, and then on the other side it would have either a component or HDMI or whatever it is. So I know this all seems a bit confusing, but if you're just starting, realize you're probably going to be okay with just the basic box, but you want to buy the Hanzo box or one of the ones that I mentioned below, so for the games you can't play, you could eventually upgrade. Okay, so again, trying to step back and simplify this. I will put the website down below. It is the most beautiful thing in the world. SCART is killer on the Dreamcast also. Now, going into all that, for people who aren't aware of how this stuff works, I don't actually have a cable on me, but I hope you guys know what a VGA cable is. But as I said, you will take this and you will plug it directly into here. It will plug in, and then from here, you'll plug in a VGA right here. Now the VGA, you can plug directly into your monitor or your television. If you don't have VGA input on there, you can get a converter. I have a HDMI converter, VGA to HDMI, that I can use. But it's that simple. You need a separate audio cord that plugs in from here to the television or to the converter. So basically it's a basic aux cable. Later on, I will do a video showing more details on how that works, and I'll show a tutorial. But this is basically what I wanted to talk about today. Dreamcast, again, is one of the most amazing systems in the world that was so ahead of its time that till this day they are making games for it. It is a breathtaking, beautiful system, and why not get the best image possible out of it? So again, guys, VGA. If you have any questions, related to this, please post in the comments below. Ask me the questions. I will respond to you. You can send me a personal email and I will discuss it with you. And I know this video might have seemed a bit confusing. I was trying to make it a little bit more for the layman who doesn't know a lot about it, but there's a lot to it. I will post links below for the VGA boxes and everything else. Anyways, guys, this is the first video in a long line of videos I'm going to be doing about the Dreamcast, and video quality and other systems. I really appreciate you guys being with me today, and please stay tuned for more great videos and great content coming from Retro Alliance Gaming. And other than that, as always, my friends, until next time.